late April to early May 1943, an olive grove near Tunis, Tunisia, North Africa. Allied reconnaissance units discovered what intelligence officers would later call the most valuable intelligence windfall of the North African campaign. Tiger 7-1-2. Abandoned. Intact. Functional. The massive German heavy tank sat silent among gnarled olive trees, its 88mm gun motionless. The crew had fled without destroying their vehicle. No demolition charges had been placed. Through the chaos of total military collapse, the Germans had left their most feared weapon for the Allies to capture whole. What would be learned from this 60-ton steel monster would prove more valuable than destroying a dozen Tigers in combat. The tank would reveal not just German engineering excellence, but a critical strategic weakness that made even the mightiest weapon vulnerable on the battlefield. Not through inadequate armor or insufficient firepower, but through an appetite for fuel so massive it defied sustainable military operations across extended campaigns. The North African campaign ended in complete disaster for Axis forces. Between May 7th and May 13th, 1943, approximately 230,000 German and Italian soldiers surrendered in Tunisia. The entire Afrika Korps ceased to exist as a fighting force. Among the surrendered units were survivors from Heavy Panzer Battalion 501, one of Germany's premier armoured formations equipped with Tiger tanks. Tigers had arrived in Tunisia beginning in late November 1942. 3 Tigers from Heavy Panzer Battalion 501 reached Tunis on November 23, 1942, marking the combat debut of German heavy tanks in North Africa. More Tigers arrived through December and January, eventually building battalion strength to 20 operational vehicles. The Tiger's reputation preceded its arrival in Tunisia. Soviet forces on the eastern Peiper front had encountered these behemoths in January 1943 near Leningrad. Red Army reports described vehicles that could destroy T-34 medium tanks from distances exceeding 2,000 meters. The Tigers mounted the famous 88mm gun, derived from Germany's effective anti-aircraft weapon, converted for anti-tank purposes. This gun could penetrate any Allied tank's frontal armor at ranges where return fire remained impossible. American forces first received intelligence reports about German super-heavy tanks in early February 1943 through British sources. The descriptions seemed exaggerated to soldiers accustomed to facing Panzer III and Panzer IV medium tanks. Intelligence summaries described a tank weighing over 55 tons with frontal armor 100mm thick and a main gun capable of destroying Allied tanks at distances beyond 2 kilometers. Many American tankers dismissed these reports as British exaggeration or propaganda. The reality exceeded the intelligence warnings. On February 14, 1943, German forces launched Operation Frühlingswind, striking American positions at Flaw Pass in central Tunisia. Elements of 21st Panzer Division, reinforced by Tigers from Heavy Panzer Battalion 501, attacked Combat Command A of the United States 1st Armored Division. The Battle of Sidi Bou Zid on February 14th and 15th demonstrated Tiger superiority decisively. Combat Command C of 1st Armored Division counterattacked on February 15th with 52 Sherman medium tanks. German forces had positioned anti-tank guns in a classic ambush, with Tigers supporting from longer range. By the time Combat Command C withdrew, 46 of 52 Sherman tanks had been destroyed or disabled. Post-battle analysis revealed critical information about the Tiger threat. A battlefield survey conducted 3 weeks after the engagement mapped destroyed American tanks and determined what weapons had killed them. Remarkably, only 1 Sherman had been hit by an 88mm round, either from a Tiger or from towed 88mm anti-tank guns. Most American tanks fell to 50mm guns from Panzer IIIs or 75mm guns from Panzer IVs. The survey demonstrated that Tigers were relatively few in number, but their psychological impact far exceeded their actual battlefield presence. The Battle of Kasserine Pass, beginning February 19, 1943, introduced American ground forces to large-scale combat against experienced German armor. Tigers participated in the offensive, though in limited numbers. American Sherman tanks mounting 75mm guns had to close within 300 meters for any possibility of penetrating Tiger armor from flank or rear angles. Tigers could engage effectively from 2,000 meters with virtual impunity from frontal attack. The psychological impact on American tank crews proved severe. Army medical officers documented what they termed tiger phobia among tankers who had encountered the German heavy tanks. The mere report of tigers in an operational area would cause American units to request air support and artillery preparation before advancing. This psychological effect multiplied the Tiger's tactical value far beyond its actual numbers. By March 1943, training materials had to be developed specifically to address Tiger phobia among American armored units. Intelligence summaries emphasized that Tigers appeared in very limited numbers, that they possessed vulnerabilities, and that proper tactics could neutralize their advantages. However, the training materials could offer little tactical guidance for Sherman crews facing Tigers in direct combat beyond the unsatisfying advice to call for artillery or air support. The final weeks of the Tunisian campaign in April and early May 1943 revealed a different Tiger vulnerability. Mechanical breakdowns, spare parts shortages, and fuel supply problems immobilized more Tigers than Allied action destroyed. Heavy Panzer Battalion 501 had arrived in Tunisia with 20 Tigers and 16 Panzer III support tanks. By the end of April, only a handful remained operational. The rest sat abandoned or destroyed by their own crews as German forces collapsed. The battalion's war diary, captured by British forces and later shared with American intelligence, documented the deteriorating situation week by week. Entries from December 1942 showed 20 Tigers operational upon arrival. By December 28th, only 14 remained operational, with 8 down for mechanical repairs. Spare parts proved unavailable. Fuel supply was irregular and insufficient for sustained operations. By January 30th, 1943, only 11 Tigers remained operational. The diary noted that fuel shortages were becoming critical, with each Tiger requiring continuous supplies of fuel, lubricants, and spare parts that German logistics in North Africa could not provide consistently. March entries reported only 6 Tigers operational, with the remainder down from mechanical failure or fuel shortages. Requests for spare engines were denied, with headquarters reporting no engines available anywhere in the theatre. The April 20th entry captured the desperation. Allied offensives were breaking through all German positions. Orders came to retreat, but fuel supplies were sufficient only for limited movement. Many Tigers would have to be abandoned. Demolition teams were overwhelmed trying to destroy so much equipment. Some vehicles would inevitably fall into enemy hands intact. Tiger 712 never received demolition charges. Its crew, facing overwhelming Allied pressure and desperately low on fuel, abandoned the vehicle in an olive grove near Tunis. Whether they expected demolition, teams to reach it, or simply fled to survive remains unknown. The chaos of total military collapse left many such questions unanswered. Lieutenant Sewell of the 104th Tank Workshop, Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, documented the discovery of Tiger 712 on June 9, 1943. His report noted the tank sat functional and intact in an olive grove alongside other abandoned German vehicles, including at least 2 other Tigers and a Panzer III. The grove appeared to have served as a field workshop, with 1 Tiger's engine covers removed. Demolition had destroyed 1 Tiger completely, but Tiger 712 remained untouched. The discovery electrified Allied intelligence communities. Colonel George B. Jarrett, chief of the Foreign Material Branch at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, received notification that American forces had secured an intact Tiger. This represented an unprecedented intelligence opportunity. For months, Allied forces had fought Tigers without fully understanding their capabilities or limitations. Now they possessed one to examine, measure, test, and analyze in complete detail. The recovery operation itself demonstrated the Tiger's extraordinary size and weight. Tiger 712 weighed 56.9 tons in combat configuration. American M31 tank recovery vehicles were designed to recover 30-ton Sherman tanks. Moving the Tiger required multiple recovery vehicles working together, plus bulldozers and specialized heavy equipment. The convoy transporting Tiger 712 from the capture site to Tunis port moved primarily at night to avoid any remaining Luftwaffe attention, though by May 1943 German air power over Tunisia had effectively ceased to exist. Engineers had to assess every bridge for load-bearing capacity. Some roads could not support the combined weight of the Tiger and its transport trailer. The journey that normally required 4 hours took 3 days. At Tunis port, loading the Tiger aboard ship presented another engineering challenge. The combined weight of tank and shipping cradle exceeded 65 tons, requiring heavy lift cranes rated for 70 tons or more. Port engineers located suitable equipment and loaded Tiger 712 aboard Liberty ship SS Samuel P. Bush for Atlantic crossing. The voyage took approximately 3 weeks, with the ship arriving at Norfolk, Virginia, in early July 1943. From Norfolk, Tiger 712 traveled by special reinforced flatbed rail car to Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, arriving in mid-July 1943. Aberdeen Proving Ground served as the United States Army's premier testing and evaluation facility for ordnance and armored vehicles. Engineers and intelligence officers had been preparing for months, studying captured German technical manuals, translating operating documents, and compiling battlefield intelligence reports. Brigadier General Gladion M. Barnes, Chief of Research and Development for Army Ordnance, sent explicit instructions to Aberdeen testing teams. The captured Tiger represented unprecedented opportunity to evaluate the most dangerous enemy tank in detail. Testing would be comprehensive, covering armor protection, armament effectiveness, mechanical reliability, mobility characteristics, and critically, logistical requirements including fuel consumption and operational range. Initial inspection revealed sophisticated German engineering. The Tiger employed interleaved road wheel arrangements with torsion bar suspension, providing superior weight distribution and cross-country performance. The Maybach Olvar transmission featured 8 forward gears and 4 reverse gears, allowing the Tiger to move as rapidly backward as forward, a useful characteristic for tanks fighting defensively. The famous 88mm KWK-36 L56 gun could fire armor-piercing rounds at muzzle velocities, exceeding 900 meters per second with exceptional accuracy. The Tiger's armor protection impressed American engineers. Frontal hull armor measured 100 millimeters thick, with frontal turret armor also 100 millimeters and gun mantlet varying from 120 to 200 millimeters. Side hull plates were 60 millimeters thick, with side superstructure armor at 80 millimeters. This armor protection made the Tiger effectively invulnerable to most Allied anti-tank weapons when engaged frontally. But Aberdeen engineers noticed something in German technical specifications that demanded immediate attention. Fuel capacity and consumption figures raised serious questions about the Tiger's operational sustainability. The tank carried 532 liters of fuel, approximately 140 United States gallons, in 4 fuel tanks located in the rear compartments. The Maybach HL23012 cylinder engine produced 690 horsepower, substantial power but barely adequate for the Tiger's 56.9-ton weight. German operating documents captured with the tank specified operational range of 195 kilometers on roads under ideal conditions, approximately 121 miles. Off-road range was listed as 110 kilometers, approximately 68 miles. These figures immediately concerned American engineers familiar with Sherman operational ranges. Even accounting for the Tiger's greater weight, the operational range seemed remarkably short. The testing program at Aberdeen ran from July 1943 through January 1944, 6 months of intensive evaluation covering every aspect of Tiger performance. Fuel consumption testing received highest priority because it directly affected operational capabilities. American military doctrine emphasized mobile warfare requiring armored units to operate deep in enemy territory, sometimes hundreds of miles from supply bases. A tank with limited operational range posed severe strategic limitations regardless of its tactical superiority. Tests on paved roads at steady cruising speed confirmed German specifications. Tiger 712 consumed approximately 195 litres per 100 kilometres on roads, equivalent to roughly 1.2 gallons per mile. This gave a theoretical maximum range of approximately 117 miles, with full 140-gallon fuel capacity, closely matching German claims of 121 miles. However, cross-country testing revealed dramatically worse fuel consumption. Aberdeen's rough terrain course included hills, mud, sand, water crossings, and obstacles simulating combat conditions. Test runs over 32-mile courses with frequent speed changes consumed 132 gallons, leaving only 8 gallons remaining from the original 140-gallon load. This represented fuel consumption of 4.125 gallons per mile, reducing operational range to approximately 34 miles under realistic cross-country conditions. Combat simulation tests produced even more alarming data. When test crews performed realistic combat tasks, including rapid acceleration and deceleration, frequent directional changes, turret traverse operations, extended idling periods simulating observation, and intensive radio use, fuel consumption reached 6.1 gallons per mile. Under these intensive combat conditions, operational range fell to approximately 23 miles before fuel exhaustion. The test results painted a devastating strategic picture. The Tiger tank, while supremely capable in direct combat, could not sustain extended mobile operations. Its massive fuel appetite demanded continuous resupply in quantities that would strain any logistics system. Under combat conditions, a Tiger battalion would require enormous fuel deliveries simply to remain mobile. Aberdeen engineers calculated the logistics burden. Each Tiger in active combat operations required approximately 1,500 to 2,000 gallons of fuel weekly. A battalion of 20 Tigers needed 30,000 to 40,000 gallons weekly just for the Tigers themselves, not counting support vehicles, half-tracks, trucks, reconnaissance vehicles, and other equipment essential to battalion operations. For comparison, American intelligence compiled fuel requirements for Sherman-equipped units. A typical American tank battalion with 53 Sherman tanks required approximately 65,000 gallons weekly, including all battalion vehicles. German heavy tank battalions with only 20 Tigers required nearly as much fuel for less than half the number of tanks. When support vehicle requirements were included, German heavy tank battalions actually consumed more total fuel than American medium tank battalions, despite fielding less than 40% as many tanks. Colonel Barnes compiled Aberdeen testing data into classified intelligence reports distributed to all Army Armour Commands in October 1943. The reports emphasized that Tiger tanks possessed formidable combat capabilities, including armour protection, superior to all Allied tanks and main armament, effective beyond 2,000 meters. However, a critical vulnerability had been identified. Fuel consumption limited operational range to approximately 120 miles under ideal road conditions, reduced to 30 to 40 miles under realistic combat conditions. German logistics must provide continuous fuel supply or Tigers would become immobilized. Immobilized Tigers cannot fight. The reports recommended strategies to interdict enemy fuel supply lines as effective methods for neutralizing Tiger threats. Intelligence officers cross-referenced Aberdeen data with captured German supply documents, revealing the full scale of Germany's logistical nightmare in sustaining Tiger operations. The analysis showed that German logistics in 1943 and 1944 could barely support Tiger fuel requirements even under favorable conditions. With Allied air power systematically destroying German supply lines, fuel shortages would inevitably cripple Tiger effectiveness. The Tiger's fuel consumption explained mysterious operational patterns Allied intelligence had observed throughout 1943. German heavy tank battalions rarely operated more than 30 to 40 kilometers from established supply bases. Tigers avoided prolonged movements when possible. They frequently assumed static defensive positions rather than pursuing defeated enemies. This was not merely tactical preference, but logistical necessity imposed by limited operational range. Captured German unit war diaries from multiple fronts confirmed the analysis. Heavy SS Panzer Battalion 101 war diary from Normandy in summer 1944 documented recurring fuel shortages. July 8th entry reported excellent combat results, with 16 Sherman tanks and 3 Cromwell tanks destroyed for loss of 1 Tiger to mechanical failure. However, fuel supplies were exhausted after 4 hours of combat. The battalion sat immobile, awaiting fuel trucks while Allied forces withdrew. Pursuit was impossible due to fuel shortage. July 20th entry reported fuel allocation reduced by 40%, with orders to conserve fuel strictly. Tigers were restricted to defensive positions only, with no offensive operations authorized until fuel situation improved. The entry lamented that the best tanks in Europe sat idle for want of fuel. August 6th, entry reported 3 Tigers abandoned during withdrawal from the Falaise pocket. All were mechanically functional, but had empty fuel tanks with no fuel available for movement. Demolition charges were placed, but crews were uncertain if detonation succeeded. Crews evacuated on foot. British intelligence shared captured documents showing identical patterns on other fronts. Heavy Panzer Battalion 503 records from Italy showed Tigers repeatedly immobilized by fuel shortages. 5th SS Panzer Division. Viking records from the Eastern Front told the same story of combat effectiveness crippled by inability to maintain fuel supplies. Everywhere Tigers operated, fuel shortages limited their effectiveness. American intelligence distributed tactical guidance based on Aberdeen findings to all combat units by November 1943. The guidance advised that when encountering Tigers, units should avoid direct frontal engagement when possible. Instead, maneuver to force Tigers to reposition. Each mile a Tiger moves consumes significant fuel reserves. Extended maneuvering exhausts Tiger fuel supplies rapidly. Immobilized Tigers can be bypassed or destroyed with artillery and air support, rather than risking direct tank engagement. Training films produced in late 1943 incorporated fuel consumption findings. One film titled Understanding German Heavy Tanks explained clearly that the Tiger tank consumed approximately 3 to 6 gallons of fuel per mile, depending on terrain and tactical situation. Sherman tanks consumed less than 1 gallon per mile under most conditions. This meant American tanks could maneuver 5 to 6 times farther on equivalent fuel. Crews were instructed to use their mobility advantage by making Tigers chase American formations, burning scarce German fuel, then striking when Tigers could no longer maneuver effectively. The Normandy campaign in summer 1944 validated Aberdeen analysis. As Allied forces broke out from beachhead positions in July and August, German armour units found themselves unable to conduct mobile operations. Heavy panzer battalions equipped with Tigers and Panthers sat immobilized not from battle damage but from empty fuel tanks. American armoured divisions advanced 130 miles in 7 days during the breakout. Tigers could not match this operational tempo, even with full fuel tanks. Their actual combat range of 30 to 40 miles meant they could barely reposition between defensive positions, much less conduct mobile operations across the battlefield. The liberation of France in August and September 1944 provided overwhelming physical evidence of Tiger fuel problems. Reconnaissance units found dozens of abandoned Tigers and Panthers along German retreat routes. Most showed no significant battle damage. All had empty fuel tanks. German crews had destroyed what vehicles they could, but often lacked even the fuel necessary to conduct proper demolitions. Operational tanks were simply abandoned when fuel ran out. The Ardennes Offensive in December 1944 exposed the fuel crisis catastrophically. German forces launched their last Great Western Offensive with strict fuel rationing. Each panzer division received fuel calculated for approximately 150 kilometers movement, with operational plans assuming capture of Allied fuel dumps for resupply. The plan failed completely. American forces held or destroyed fuel dumps, and German armour immobilized across Belgium as fuel ran out. Kampfgruppe Peiper, spearhead of 6th Panzer Army Offensive, advanced 60 kilometers before fuel exhaustion stopped all movement. The battle group included Tigers from 1st SS Panzer Division. Soldiers at Stoumont and L'Église reported Tigers littering roadsides, immobilized by empty fuel tanks rather than battle damage. Major Hal D. McCown, an American officer captured by Kampfgruppe Peiper who later escaped, testified that German officers discussed the fuel situation openly. They desperately needed to capture American fuel dumps. When American forces held the dumps, the German offensive collapsed. McCown witnessed Tiger crews frantically siphoning fuel from disabled vehicles, trying to get at least some Tigers moving. The fuel crisis was total and absolute. German records captured after the war revealed that fuel shortages dominated German operational planning from 1943 onward. Each Tiger consumed approximately 300,000 gallons of fuel over its average service life. That same fuel quantity could have powered 7 Panther tanks or 18 Panzer IV tanks. Germany had chosen concentrated firepower over distributed capability and paid the strategic price in operational paralysis when fuel supplies dwindled. The final American assessment, prepared by Army Ordnance in March 1945, concluded definitively that the Tiger I heavy tank represented exceptional design for individual combat performance but catastrophic failure in logistical sustainability. Fuel consumption of approximately 1.2 gallons per mile on roads, increasing to 3 to 6 gallons per mile under combat conditions, rendered the Tiger operationally unsustainable in extended campaigns. German industry could produce these tanks. German military could crew them with skilled tankers. But German logistics could not fuel them adequately, especially under constant Allied air interdiction of supply lines. After the war, Allied forces interrogated captured German tank designers and engineers. Henschel engineers who developed the Tiger admitted that fuel consumption concerns were raised during the design phase, but were overruled by military demands for maximum armor protection and firepower. Erwin Aders, a senior engineer at Henschel, testified to Allied interrogators in May 1945 that engineers calculated during the design phase that Tiger fuel consumption would limit operational range to approximately 120 kilometers on roads, significantly less in combat conditions. This was reported to Wehrmacht procurement officers who acknowledged the limitation, but insisted that the Tiger's combat superiority would enable quick, decisive victories before fuel became a critical limiting factor. History proved them wrong. Dr. Ferdinand Porsche, whose competing Tiger design was rejected in favor of Henschel's version, provided testimony explaining that both competing designs suffered from excessive fuel consumption. His design used gasoline-electric drive, which was even less fuel-efficient than Henschel's mechanical transmission. Engineers knew that no heavy tank weighing 55 to 60 tons could achieve acceptable fuel economy with technology available in 1942. But military leadership demanded the heaviest armor and most powerful gun, regardless of logistical consequences. The result was a tank that could dominate any individual battle, but could not sustain campaigns. The Tiger's fuel consumption became a prominent teaching example in post-war military education. The United States Army Command and General Staff College used it extensively in logistics courses to illustrate a fundamental principle. A weapon that cannot be sustained in combat is not an effective weapon regardless of tactical performance. The Tiger tank, despite its fearsome reputation and genuine tactical superiority, ultimately proved this principle through thousands of examples across European battlefields. Superior tactical performance without logistical sustainability equals strategic failure. Tiger 712 remained at Aberdeen Proving Ground as a training exhibit until 1989, serving for 46 years as a physical reminder of the importance of logistics in armoured warfare. The tank that had terrorised Allied crews in 1943 became a classroom tool teaching the critical relationship between tactical capability and strategic sustainability. Generations of American armor officers studied it, learning lessons about balancing firepower, protection, and mobility with sustainable logistics. In 1989, Tiger 712 was loaned to Germany for restoration and display. It eventually returned to the United States and currently resides at Fort Moore, Georgia, formerly Fort Benning, as part of the United States Army Armor and Cavalry Collection. The left side of hull and turret remain cut open for instructional purposes, revealing internal components to students. It stands as both monument and teaching tool, representing German engineering excellence that ignored operational sustainability constraints. The capture and testing of Tiger 712 provided intelligence that fundamentally shaped Allied tank tactics for the remainder of World War II. American tank crews learned that the fearsome Tiger possessed a vulnerability more significant than any weakness in its armor scheme. It consumed fuel at rates that made sustained mobile operations impossible when facing Allied air interdiction and systematic attacks on German supply lines. Understanding this, vulnerability allowed Allied forces to develop effective counter-tactics that neutralized Tiger advantages without requiring equivalent armor or firepower. Understanding Tiger fuel consumption influenced American tank design for decades after the war. The M48 Patton tank, developed in the 1950s, achieved better than 1 mile per gallon fuel economy despite weighing 47 tons and mounting a powerful 90mm gun. American engineers remembered that mobility depends fundamentally on fuel efficiency, and fuel efficiency demands disciplined engineering choices, balancing multiple competing requirements. The lessons learned from Tiger 712 ensured that operational range remained a critical design parameter for all subsequent American armored vehicles. Modern main battle tanks continue the legacy of balancing firepower, protection, and mobility with sustainable logistics. The M1 Abrams tank, introduced in 1980, carries over 500 gallons of fuel and achieves approximately 0.6 miles per gallon, enabling operational range exceeding 300 miles on roads. Despite being a gas turbine-powered 70-ton vehicle, the Abrams maintains sufficient operational range for deep strikes and mobile operations. Designers ensure that even the most powerful tanks can go the distance operationally, a lesson learned partly from Tiger 712. The story of Tiger 712 teaches an enduring lesson about military technology. Superior weapons require sustainable logistics to achieve strategic effect. The most powerful tank in the world becomes useless when immobilized waiting for fuel trucks that never arrive. German engineering created a tactical masterpiece in the Tiger. German logistics could not sustain it in extended operations against enemies who controlled the air and systematically destroyed supply infrastructure. Allied forces exploited this vulnerability ruthlessly and effectively. The final assessment belongs to Colonel George B. Jarrett, who supervised all captured German equipment evaluation during and after the war. Written in June 1945, his summary assessment captured 3 years of testing and analysis. The German Tiger tank achieved everything its designers promised tactically. It provided superior armor protection, devastating firepower at long range, and excellent crew protection. But it failed strategically because it violated a fundamental military principle. Any weapon system must be sustainable in extended combat operations. The Tiger's fuel consumption, mechanical complexity, and extraordinary logistical demands made it ultimately unsustainable in prolonged warfare. Germany built an army around weapons it could not adequately support logistically. The Tiger exemplifies this failure perfectly. Brilliant tactical capability cannot overcome inadequate strategic logistics. The Tiger proved this truth in thousands of burning and abandoned hulks scattered across Europe from Tunisia to Berlin. Tiger 712 sits today in climate-controlled storage at Fort Moore, Georgia. Its 88mm gun remains silent forever. The Maybach engine that consumed fuel so voraciously will never run again. But the lessons it taught continue resonating through every armor school, every logistics course, every staff college studying modern mechanized warfare. The principles are timeless and universal. The tank that terrorized Allied crews in 1943 became the teacher that shaped modern armored doctrine, not through its considerable strengths but through its greatest weakness. The Tiger could dominate any single battlefield through superior firepower and protection, but it could not reach distant battlefields, could not sustain extended operations far from supply bases, and could not survive the systematic fuel starvation that Allied air power and logistics targeting inflicted on German forces. A tank that travels only 120 miles on a full tank of fuel under ideal conditions, reduced to 30 miles under combat conditions, cannot win wars spanning entire continents. Germany learned this lesson through thousands of abandoned Tigers from North Africa to Normandy to the Ardennes to Berlin. America learned it through systematic testing of Tiger 712 and built an armored force that prioritized operational sustainability alongside combat capability. In mechanized warfare, the side that can sustain operations across distance and time wins. The Tiger forgot that fundamental rule. History never forgave the oversight. The capture and testing of Tiger 712 ensured that Allied forces understood completely that firepower means nothing without fuel to reach the battlefield. Armor protection means nothing without mobility to exploit tactical success. The best tank in the world means nothing without the logistics infrastructure to sustain it across extended campaigns in hostile territory under enemy air attack. Tiger 712 stands today as both monument and teacher. Monument to German engineering ambition that exceeded logistical reality and strategic sustainability. Teacher of the enduring principle that warfare requires sustainable systems engineering, not merely superior weapons. The most powerful weapon becomes expensive immobile sculpture when it cannot move to the next battle. The Tiger tank proved that lesson definitively and repeatedly across European battlefields. The Americans who captured and tested it learned that lesson completely and incorporated it into doctrine. Modern armored forces remember that lesson constantly. The 60-ton steel beast that once terrorized battlefields now teaches quietly in a Georgia museum. Its greatest contribution to military history was not the enemy tanks it destroyed in combat, but the understanding it provided about the essential relationship between tactical excellence and strategic sustainability. In that paradox lies the complete story of Tiger 712, the most dangerous tank in the world, ultimately defeated not by superior enemy weapons but by its own insatiable appetite for fuel that German logistics could never adequately satisfy.